Thank you for joining us today for a presentation on how to do a market segmentation analysis using IBM Watson Data Platform. Today we have two speakers, Rafi Kurlansek and Rory Wickham. And we're waiting a couple more minutes as we still have some people joining. So just a couple more minutes and we'll get started. The webinar is being recorded. You will get a link to the recording. You will also get a copy of the slides and notebooks used during the presentation. Rafi, I think we're ready. I think we can get started now.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Anna. So thank you everyone for joining us here today. As Anna mentioned, we're going to be talking about how to perform a market segmentation analysis on the IBM Watson Data Platform. And I'll go over our agenda for you today. We're going to have a brief introduction. Rory and I will introduce ourselves. Then I'm going to talk to you about the Watson Data Platform, how we understand the roles on an analytics team, and then also the various types of services that those different roles require. Then we're going to go into a recent use case demonstration that we had with a customer. And then once we go through the demo, we'll review what we learned and conclude. And then finally, we'll have some time for questions. Okay, so by way of introduction, my name is Rafi Kurlansek. I'm an open source solutions engineer here at IBM. And my background is actually in healthcare and doing predictive modeling for healthcare. Prior to that, I was a commodities trader on the New York Mercantile Exchange. And Rory, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Rafi. Yes, my name is Rory Wickham. I'm a technical sales specialist in business analytics for the industrial market here at IBM. I'm coming up on about a year and a half here serving at IBM. Prior to joining IBM, I was an independent data warehousing and business intelligence consultant specializing primarily in Cognos. But I did get exposure to a number of other tools at the time: MicroStrategy, Oracle's Business Intelligence, Enterprise Edition, Tableau, Click, across a number of different industries, everything from retail, B2B, state government, military, you name it, I pretty much did it. But during that time, it was, I'd say, primarily focused on all things Cognos. Real quick call out, because on a non-work related note, I'm very much a huge Star Wars geek. Today is Star Wars Day, so I wanted to wish everyone have a good Star Wars Day, and may the 4th be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rory. Okay, so moving along, now let's talk about the Watson Data Platform. And in order to understand what the concept of the Watson Data Platform is, I want to provide some context. The way that we at IBM see the advanced analytics team is sort of broken up into 4 different personas. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these personas and what their workloads are, and then we'll come back around and you'll understand how Watson Data Platform fits in with that. So when you have a analytics project, you first have to define the question. So you have a person on your team that's the business analyst. They tend to work with the line of business leaders and define, what it is that we want to figure out. What problem do we want to solve? Okay. Then you have another person on your team who's the data engineer, and their job is to collect the right data sources, build the right pipelines to the different data sources, and make that data available to the other analysts on the team. The third role is the data scientist, who dives even deeper into the data and builds models to answer that original question with the highest degree of accuracy. But then there's one more role that needs to be brought in here, and that is the app developer, because the data scientists, while they build these models, they still need to be put into production. It's one thing to build a model and make some predictions, but then you actually need to embed it in an application or have some way to have it serve the business. So that's where the app developer comes in. And you see here on this chart that there's these roles actually, there's overlap between them. So if you take the business analyst, for instance, they're going to explore the data and do some, data visualization and things like that so they can understand what's going on. But of course, the data scientist will do that as well. Now, the app developer, that's not really his job. He's not going to be doing data visualization and exploration. However, his job is to deliver and deploy the model. So as you see here from this slide, the team works together on these various components of the project, and there is overlap, but there are also unique tasks for each role. Okay, so now if we were to view these personas through a workflow, this is kind of what it would look like. And I talked a little bit about this, but I do want to go through just so that it's very clear. Okay, so the business analyst starts off, they get the business understanding and what kind of question are we trying to answer here? And then they'll come to the data engineer and say, hey, get me this data that's relevant to this question. So the data engineer works and brings that data into the project and gets it to the people who are going to be analyzing it. So he'll make it available to the business analyst and he'll make it available to the data scientist. Then the data scientist, as I mentioned before, he'll go and build the models that will answer that question and then hand off the model object to the developer who then implements it and deploys it so that it serves the business. And you can see as the arrows go back and forth here that this is an iterative. There are parts of this process that are iterative, and we go back and forth in order to reach our final result. Okay, so with that understood, that idea of the advanced analytics team, the idea of the personas and the different roles, what is the concept of the Watson Data Platform? So the idea of the Watson Data Platform is that all the tools and services that an advanced analytics team needs to do their jobs well are available to be provisioned in the cloud. So that can be everything from tools to analyze data, tools to store data, and then even for that last component to be able to deploy things and have them serve the business. So today in our demonstration, I'm going to just briefly talk about the services that we're going to use. So the first one is the Data Science Experience, which is a data science IDE that leverages open source as well as IBM value add to foster collaboration and project management for data science projects. Then we're also going to use one of the Watson APIs, and this little icon you see here is for the Natural Language Understanding API. I'll go into that shortly, but we're going to use this RESTful API to do this project. For storage, we're going to use object storage and also Compose, IBM Compose, which is a collection of fully managed open source databases that can be scaled to suit the needs of a given project. And Rory is going to show us Watson Analytics, which is an excellent tool for a business analyst who may not know how to write code, but still wants to be able to dig into their data visually and have some prediction as well. And then lastly, you'll see that we're going to use the Watson machine learning to deploy the model that's built and then have it incorporated into some kind of app that could be hosted on Bluemix. Okay, so now that you understand what the Watson Data Platform is, and you understand in a very basic way what the different services that we're going to use for this use case, now we'll actually go into the demonstration. Okay, so what was the question that we were trying to answer here? We were approached by a customer and they wanted to perform market segmentation analysis. And what that meant to them was they wanted to be able to classify their customers based on which market they fall into, but also which sub-market they fall into. So for example, IBM might be technology company, but also hardware or software or something like that. So they wanted to be able to take unstructured data like a company's website or a text description of the company and then tease out what is that company really about. That's the most important thing that they wanted. The second thing was they then wanted to take that enriched data from the artificial intelligence and combine it with their sales data to try and predict which companies they should target as potential customers. So this was eventually going to be used as a tool for salespeople to help them decide which customers they should go after. Then the third pain point for this company was they needed some way to get feedback from the field, from the salespeople. So we needed a way to show how you could deploy that model and potentially get feedback from the people using it. And then the last thing was to be able to foster collaboration between the different roles on the analytics team and make the data that was procured by the data engineer with using the AI, make that available to the business analyst, make that available to the data scientist, and have that be a pretty seamless transition. So those were the four tasks that we wanted to accomplish with this use case, and I'm happy to show them to you today. Okay, so now let's go into the demonstration. I'm going to start off by being the data engineer. Okay, so again, if you recall, my job as the data engineer was to get the right data into the right people's hands. And I had this request from the business analyst for this market segmentation analysis that, hey, can you get me an enriched data set that gives me more insight into our customers in terms of which primary and sub-markets that they fall into. So what I'm going to use as a data engineer is I'm going to, well, I have to escape this to be able to see my mouse. Okay. So what I'm going to use as a data engineer to get that information is the Watson Natural Language Understanding API, because I know about this, and I'm excited to share this with you because I think it's very cool. The way the Watson Natural Language Understanding API works is that you can send Watson either a block of text or a URL, and it will return back to you a richly structured set of data. So if you see here, I have this website, fieldgoals.com, which is a Seattle Seahawks fan site. I'm originally from Seattle, and this is a great fan site. So I'm going to send this URL to Watson, and it's going to return back to me a bunch of information. Let's see what Watson tells me. So I don't care too much about sentiment, but let's see what kind of entities are recognized by Watson. So the number one recognized entity is the Seahawks, and there's a relevance score here, which basically says how confident Watson is that this is what this website's talking about, what the content is talking about. And then it also gives me a bunch more information. These players happen to be draft picks. Their draft was a couple weeks ago. So that's pretty good. But this isn't really what the customer was looking for. They were looking for a taxonomy or classification of the content. So if I look at categories, Watson will actually provide up to 5 levels deep, depending upon the information you give it, a taxonomy of the various subjects in the content that you provided to it. So here you see that sports and football was the most relevant classification. And I think it's interesting to note that Watson actually scores sports alone with a lower score than the submarket or the sub-classification, if you will, of football. And of course, you might think that the Seahawks has to do with pets or birds, but Watson's able to understand that that's really not relevant to this web page, even though there is some association there, obviously. Okay, so this is what I'm going to use as a data engineer to enrich the customer data set. But now, what environment am I going to use to do that? And that's where the data science experience comes in. So when you first log into the data science experience, this is the screen that you see, and it's the community page, and this is a screen where you can search for various tutorials and data sets, things to help you learn as a data engineer or as a data scientist. And the basic workspace in DSX is a project. So I'm going to go into the project that I've created for this use case, and you'll see that I have various assets here. There are various assets that I can attach to the project. Now, the most important one is going to be my collaborators. These are going to be the people that I work with on this project. So I've already invited Rory, but if I wanted to add more people, I could simply come over here and invite them via email, and I can also assign which level of permission they have. Do they have read-only access, read and write access, or even admin access? Okay, fine. Now the next most important thing are the data connections, and this is really my job as the data engineer. So there's different types of many different types of connections that we can create to different data sources. It could be unstructured data sources like object storage, or it could be to relational databases like Postgres. And we can also add flat files to the project. Now, the way that we create these connections is actually very, very simple. Similar to how we added a user, we come in here and there's an interface where we create a connection and provide the credentials and so on and so forth. Okay, but now what I want to show you here before we go on to the analytics assets is these flat files here you see are of the catalog file type. And I want to just take a couple minutes to show you what the catalog is. The catalog is the data management portion of DSX, or the Data Science Experience. And the reason I think this is important is one of the big value adds of the Data Science Experience is the ability to manage your project and your data. And when you create a catalog, it's very similar to, the idea here is that you're kind of creating your data lake. You're creating a centralized repository of data that can be searched and indexed, and only users that have access to a particular catalog can work with that data on any given project. So it's an additional level of control and auditability that you have for your data. Okay, so let me go back to our project now. And we'll start to build out that enriched customer data set for the business analyst. Okay, so what I'm going to use here is a Jupyter Notebook. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Jupyter Notebook, this is a document that interweaves HTML rendered text with code cells that can be executed independently from each other. Now, I'm not going to go through the code here because that's, I think, just a little beyond the scope of the demo and might not be super interesting for the audience. But I do want to highlight the tasks that we accomplish in this environment. So as you can see here, this is using R. This is an R kernel with Spark 2.0 that's baked into the environment. And the credentials that you see here are just random. It's a random key that I created just for the sake of, you know, having it look like a real key. But inside of this notebook, we can use either R kernels, Scala, or Python, and we're also able to leverage the power of Spark because it's running underneath. Okay. Now, what were some of the things that we were able to do here? The files that I've added to the catalog were very easy to begin working with. If I come over here and I've added them to the project, when I click Insert to Code, they get added to the code cell, and then I can start working with the data. So I have my customer data set, my internal customer data set, and now what I want to do is I want to send the customer URLs to Watson. But I needed to be able to do this in a scalable, programmatic fashion. So I can write a custom function in here because we're using R. And what I do is I take the list of customer websites, and then I send them to Watson one at a time and return back to me a data frame with the various classifications. Okay. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've sent this whole list of customer URLs to Watson, and what I get back is a taxonomy score, classification score, and the particular classification. But this itself is a little bit difficult for the business analyst to use. It'd be nicer if I could split it up into having a unique column for each level of the classification. So I do that here in the code, and we'll skip past that.
Rafi?
Yeah.
I'm getting a request to scroll the window a little bit to the left. They say he can't see the Jupyter commands.
Scroll, okay. Like thusly? Expanded like that? Or do you want me to zoom in?
Or maybe shift it a little bit.
Yeah, Ravi, this is Roy. I think the thing was I could see a little bit of the black command screen on the right. So I think the concern was maybe that's cutting off some of the Jupyter Notebook. And it looks
Okay.
like it doesn't look like it is, but I think that was the concern.
Has this, I move the window over, is this, I can also maximize it. Let me see what happens if I maximize it. Is this better?
James, then let me know if that helped. Yeah,
Okay.
he says that has improved it.
Okay, great. All right, I'm glad. Okay, so as a data engineer, what did I do in this notebook? I loaded my existing customer data. I wrote the custom function to use the natural language understanding API and get that data back for our customers. And then I cleaned up the data and prepared it for the business analyst. And then to make that available to him, I actually wrote this out to Compose, to a Postgres database in Compose. And what you see here in the output, the returning true means that those were successful writes to the database. So now Rory, as the business analyst, he's going to be able to open up this data set in Watson Analytics. I've also written it out to object storage, so now it's made available in multiple locations from this environment so that the greater analytics team can access it and make use of it. And once I've added the enriched customer list to the catalog and made it part of the project, then it's very easy for Rory to actually open this up in Watson Analytics directly from inside DSX. Okay, so my job as the data engineer is done. I found this classification data. I was able to, write a script that programmatically accesses the API, and I've made that data. I've joined that AI data with our customer data, and now I've made it available to Rory. So now, Rory, why don't you take it away and show us what you're going to do with Watson Analytics?
Excellent. Thank you, Rafi. Give me a moment, and I'll make sure to start sharing my screen. Okay. So what you should be seeing now is the Watson Analytics screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes, it looks fine.
Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, so now here we are in Watson Analytics, and in this particular case, I'm going to assume the role of the business analyst. So I was told that the data has been loaded into Compose. For the sake of saving some time, I'm going to skip the step of going through how to actually load the data into Watson Analytics. Suffice it to say that you have a number of different ways to actually load data into Watson Analytics, everything from pulling in Cognos reports, Twitter, SurveyMonkey, Eventbrite, and uploading a file. You can actually also go in and create a number of different data connections and add them as availability to pull data from a number of different sources, Apache Hive, Cloudera Impala, DashDB, a SQL Server. So you have a wide breadth of selection that you can pull data in from. But for right now, we'll skip to the step where I've already uploaded it. The important thing to know is when you're using Watson Analytics, it's not just taking the data and uploading it into the Watson Analytics environment. It's actually looking and understanding more about the context of that data. What are the data types in there? Sure. But what are the relationships of the data across the different columns and rows? What are the patterns that are in there? And it's also actually assigning a data quality score. So as we can see here in Watson Analytics, the enriched customer master data that I brought in from Compose that was provided by the Rafi and the Data Science Experience and Watson Natural Language, it got assigned a data quality score of 65%. Well, I'd like to know a little bit more about why did it get assigned a data quality score of 65%? What was it that Watson Analytics saw inside of this data that made it think, yeah, this data quality score isn't quite where I'd like it to be? And it looks like my browser just hung a little bit, but what we're going to see when it brings up the information is it's going to give us a sample of data across the rows and columns, but it'll also give us the ability to look at the individual data quality metrics column by column. So instead of just looking at the holistic score, now I can look at each column color-coded to see what's going on with the data. If I look at country, this first column on the left, it was given a data quality score of 61%, so it's medium quality. Now, why did it do that? Well, it's medium quality because while it's mostly filled out, it looks like it's only missing about 1% of its values. It has a different number of values, but the majority of them are the same value, and it looks like my guess is it's probably United States. If we look over next to a parent site is 99% quality. Again, it's only missing 1% of its values, and it's got a large number of different values. We can contrast that with over here with the text taxonomy label 4 column and the ones next to it, they're colored in red. Those are low quality. And just by quickly looking at it, I can tell why. It looks like if we look at this column, it's missing 91% of its values. So that's not really going to be very helpful in my analysis or any analysis that Watson Analytics is going to do. So in this particular case, I might at one point need to reach back out to Rafi in the data science group and let them know, hey, I'm seeing a couple of different columns in this data set that we really need to flush out more data because it's not very useful to me and it's actually dragging down the overall quality of the data. From here, if I wanted, I could decide to look at the number of different columns that are actually included in the data set and a quick snap view as to what are their aggregation settings, how are they being sorted if and when they're being sorted, and what's their overall data type. And from here, I could quickly change them if I wanted. So an ability to very quickly know more about what is going on in the data, as well as be able to refine and shape the data a little bit if I wanted to. The last thing I can look at inside this part is to actually tell Watson Analytics which fields I do and do not want to include in any analysis going forward. And the way I do that is by selecting this Actions button, and it'll fly out and show me all the columns, and the ones that are checked are included, and there are certain fields that were provided automatically by Watson Analytics that are not included by default. For instance, the rows column. If I scroll down, I can continue to see more, and it looks like it actually even identified some hierarchies. So here's another way that Watson Analytics is speeding up my analysis. It gave me a data quality score. It let me know which columns are good quality versus bad quality. It gave me a row count capability if I wanted to use it. And on top of that, it even identified hierarchies that I could use for drilling down into the information. And in fact, I even created one on my own called URL taxonomy that allowed me to add in different levels of fields. So I started at label 2, the next level down in details label 3, 4, and so on. So for right now, I'm done getting a good idea of what's going on with the data quality score. Clearly there are some fields out there that need to have their data be more complete and more holistic. So I need to just make a mental note to reach back out to the data science group and let them know, hey, there's something going on with this data. On the next time we actually run it, could you please get a more filled out version of these columns so that we can better understand what's going on from a data quality perspective. It looks like my browser is hanging again for some reason. Let's just refresh real quick. And then we'll go right over into the normal Watson Analytics window. Okay, so we're out of the refined capability. Now what I want to do is actually start to navigate and understand more about this information. So I'm going to start into my discovery of the information. So now, again, Watson Analytics has helped me. It looked at the data, understand key points of it, gave it a data quality score, but it also was able to identify, hey, these are some areas of interest that might be of interest to you inside of the data. So here's some suggested starting points. For instance, what are the values of total revenue and average purchase price by country? That does sound like something I'd be interested in knowing. So let's take a look at that. So I select that suggested question, and it brings back a nice geographic visualization that shows me the shaded areas of the two metrics in question, total revenue and average purchase price. And immediately something jumps out to me. I see that Japan over here has a medium to low amount of revenue, but a fairly high average purchase price. Conversely, if I go over to the United States, it looks like it has a large amount of revenue, but a much lower average purchase price. So that makes me think that, okay, if we want to sell more, we're going to have to really look at our pricing schemes here. So let's take another look at this and just see how it's going. Maybe I want to look at just those countries that were around the 2,000 and below price points to get a good look at. Okay, so it looks like China, India, Sweden, good. Now if I want to invert that, definitely looks like we have Japan over there and Germany. Okay, good. So I'll bring that back out. Now I also want to take a look at that revenue one more time just to see where that's at. And I want to see anyone that's over 1.7 million. Looks like it's hung up there. There we go. Yep, United States. Okay, good. So now I was able to pretty much prove out that the majority of the revenue is at United States. There's definitely something going on with price, so I'm going to continue to analyze this in the future, and I'm going to look at this as total revenue and average price by country. Good. So one thing that's really interesting is Watson Analytics has looked at the question I've asked and suggested a number of other areas that I might be interested in, subsequent discoveries based on the question I'm asking. As I'm reviewing them, a lot of them seem to be pretty interesting, but what I'm very curious about is this one at the bottom, the purchase quantity by country. I'd like to take a look at that. So this does fall in line. It looks like the United States definitely is the leader in both units that have been ordered, as well as the total revenue. I'm just curious, though, if there's any play in the size of these companies that are purchasing the information. So I'd like to slice this up a little bit. And are there any other kind of size information? Oh, good, company size. Quick search on that and bring it in. Okay, so yeah, it definitely looks like the small companies are the ones that are providing the lion's share of the revenue, definitely in the United States, but also in Italy, the UK, India, China. So, okay, so we need to focus on country, we need to focus on our purchase price, but we also need to apparently look at the company size. So let's keep this as our analysis moving forward. And we'll do units by company size. Good. Okay, so that answers a couple different questions. I think what I would like to do now is actually ask a completely different question. So far, the one consistent thing we've been looking at seems to be revenue, units, price. I wonder if there really is a relationship between the amount of revenue and how things are being priced. So let's ask that question. How are total revenue and average purchase price related? So I asked that of Watson Analytics. It thinks for a moment and gives me a number of different ways to actually look at this. Okay, now this is kind of cool. I actually didn't type the column names correctly. It's supposed to be total underscore revenue and AVG underscore purchase underscore price, but it was able to understand what I was asking, understood the context of it, and associate it correctly. That's pretty cool. So let's take a look at what it comes up here. Wow, yeah, so that definitely looks like I'm on the right path. So this one really big purchase up here looks like it, average purchase price was about $6,600, but all those purchases only brought in about 186 grand. If I come over here when the purchase price is lower, at 55, that ended up at 140 grand at about 1.1K. This one over here, 137K at 877. So those two alone were already more than this one up here. So I'm seeing way more scatter plot action over here when our price point is around the 1 to 1.5-ish K. So definitely seeing a relationship between the price and the revenue. Revenue and price relationship. Okay, so that's good to know. All right, so what I want to know next, we've looked at where our sales going, we've sliced it up by company size, we've looked at price. I think the one thing that's kind of missing is that actual segmentation bit. So let's ask another question. What's the revenue for URL taxonomy level 2? Okay, so it's going to think about it for a moment and come back. How are the values of total revenue and URL taxonomy score associated? How do the values of total revenue compare by URL taxonomy label 2? Great. Oh, I even completely mistyped the metric and it was able to associate it. So good. That's exactly what I'm wanting to see. Wow. So definitely focusing on 3 specific areas, it looks like: business and industrial, home and garden, and then technology and computing. So this is interesting, but I want to shake my analysis up a bit. Let's alter our visualization a little bit. I want to first make sure that that company size is still having an impact. I know small seem to be having the most impact. So yep, it's still stuck with home and garden, tech and computing, and business and industrial. Let's see if it's switched up a little bit with medium and just focus in on that. No, it's been pretty consistent. So as I focus in on the different areas, it seems to be, well, this one's a little bit different. There seem to be travel pulling up equal. For the most part, though, it does seem to be that the business and industrial, technology and computing, home and garden seem to be the segments we need to focus on. I think I'm going to change the visualization a little bit and continue to navigate more. So we'll look at things from more of a word cloud perspective. And quickly, let's go ahead and look at this. We'll do a product, or we'll do segment analysis. Good. All right, so technology and computing definitely seems to be the winner. I know it's a little bit weird, but I'd rather have a variation and have this be a little bit fun with how it's showing things up. Okay, good. So technology and computing. Let's drill down into that. Inside of technology and computing, what should I be looking at? Okay, consumer electronics, blank. All right, so I got to tell Rafi and company to continue to fill out the data. I don't want to see blanks. A couple blanks, okay, but that seems to be a pretty large number. Let's exclude it from our analysis for right now. All right, consumer electronics, that seems to be a big one. We'll just keep navigating on down. Camera and photo equipment, good. Drilling on into the details, cameras and camcorders. Where's the bottom at? What should I be focused on? So camcorders, okay. So this is good information to have. So I definitely want to focus on camcorders moving forward. So let's reset and go all the way back up to the top level, technology and computing. All right, so let's recap here and think about it. So United States, Japan definitely seem to be countries to focus on. We want to look at small companies, right? And then we were also able to see that when we look at things from a revenue price perspective, we need to change things to about the 1-ish, 1.5K mark. And if we drill on down into the details, technology and computing all the way down to camcorders seems to be what we focus on. But you know, as I'm repeating this to myself, I'm starting to see a problem. Every single point I've gone along, I look at the outliers and just focus on them. Here I focused on the countries. Here I focused on the company sizes. Here I focused in on the price point. It's not wrong per se, but I've only focused on a couple different items, and in those, it's always the one that stands out. So maybe, I mean, there's a lot of data out there. I think I'm going to use some of the advanced analytic capability in Watson Analytics to actually help me understand more about what is truly driving revenue. So I'm going to pull up this driver's revenue capability, and I'm going to tell it my target is going to be total revenue. So it thinks about it for a few seconds, comes back, and wow, there are a lot of fields that seem to be having an impact on total revenue. I'm glad I asked. So it looks like the very top one are employees and URL taxonomy label 3. So this is good. So first it tells me I wasn't too far off the mark. I know company size is very synonymous with employees, so fairly close there. URL taxonomy label 3. I know there's 5 labels or levels. I was focusing on the 5th level, but it looks like I should actually be focusing on the 2nd and 3rd labels here, and I wasn't too far off with realizing that average purchase price was having an impact. So this is great information to have. So we'll say revenue drivers is what this is going to be called. And then I'm going to save this analysis because I know moving forward as I get more data, this is something I'm going to be very curious to revisit and monitor as I go forward. So we'll say market segment discovery. Excellent. Okay, so now I've actually built up this analysis. The last thing I really want to do is have a bit of a dashboard for it. So let's do a quick display. I can do dashboards, infographics, storybooks. I'm just going to keep it simple. Let's just do a dashboard. Customer segment dashboard. Oh, let's keep it safe dash. Okay. Now the good thing is I know that I have a number of templates I can start from, so I don't have to build totally from scratch. I'll select this little 2x2. And on top of that, I also know that I don't have to rebuild all those different visuals I was using before. I can navigate all the way down to that discovery set that I just created and start to leverage that and put them in these little drop zones here and just quickly build out a dashboard. Great, and from here if I wanted to, I can continue to format things so it looks and feels just the way I want it. I personally am not a big fan of having legends, so I know I definitely want to get rid of any legends that are there. Let's do that. I also am not a huge fan of seeing grids, so we'll get rid of those. And then let's see, I think that's really all I want to do for right now. And then as I'm looking at this dashboard, it's been formatted the way I want, I can start to look at, for the United States, where's our focus? So all the visuals impact automatically. I can see over here the United States is there. Technology and computing definitely taking the way. If I want to focus in from there, it'll realign again, and I can see the different price points. So good to know. So I can back some of my selections up and go back to where I was before, and then I can save this dashboard out. Good. So now that I've actually done that, thank you, Rafi, for the reminder. I wanted to make sure that I go in and leave some feedback for the data scientists. So I'm going to go over here and enter DSX. So now that I'm in the data science experience, I want to navigate to that project that Rafi had let me know about. So there it is, Market Segmentation Analysis on the Watson Data Platform. I'll navigate into that, and I know that the data engineers were the ones that were actually bringing in that information, so I want to leave them a couple quick comments and let them know. Hey there, could you please flush out the taxonomy columns to have more values? The blanks are causing an issue in some of my analysis, and I'm concerned we're missing segments. Thanks. May the force be with you. Perfect. Okay. And with that, I've finished my analysis. I'm heading off to my meeting, and that is the Watson Analytics piece, and I will return it back to Rafi and company.
Okay, thanks, Rory. That's pretty cool how you have your text messages directly go to your screen. You're going to have to tell me how to set that up for myself sometime.
Well, I also remembered, I thought I had turned off notifications, but apparently I had forgotten. So yeah, I'll definitely show you how to do that.
All good. All good. Okay, folks. So I think Rory did an amazing job of showing how Watson Analytics is a great service for the business analyst. I want to make sure we have enough time for questions and stuff. So I'm going to take over as the data scientist now and incorporate those insights that he got from Watson Analytics and do my data scientist role. So if you recall, the job of the data scientist was to build predictive models that can answer that original business question. In this case, which customers should we go after based on their market segmentation, and then hand that model off to the app developer. So I'm not going to go through this entire notebook. I'm not going to go through any of the code, but I just want to focus on the tasks that I'm able to accomplish here as the data scientist. So this is another R notebook, and I load the enriched customer data set.
We're not seeing your screen.
Oh, I thought you were gonna. Okay.
Yeah, I made you presenter, but I think you need to take control. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right, good. So I didn't really show anything else, so this is fine. Yeah, so in this notebook, I'm going to accomplish these tasks. I'm going to load that enriched customer data set, the same one that Rory worked with. And when I do my data shaping and creating my flags for various fields, I'll incorporate the information that Rory told me. So I'm going to flag United States as an important country. I'll flag the size of the company is important, and so on and so forth. And then once I use the various open source libraries here to make my predictions, I can export the results to Postgres and to object storage, just like the data engineer did. Now, one other thing I want to show as part of this demonstration is the deployment piece. And this is something I'm pretty excited to share with you all. We have the Watson Machine Learning Service that is built into DSX. It is currently in beta, but I do want to show you what you can do with it. Oh, wrong one. Just a moment. Okay, I don't no idea why I got muted there, but okay. All right, so if you come into your project and you go into your analytics assets, you can, besides creating notebooks, you can also create models. Now there are different ways that you can do this. You can either you can provide your data set and have the service automatically select which classifier is the best for you to use, which algorithm is the best to use, or you can there's a user interface where you can select how you want to prepare your data and which classification you want to use. So I've already gone and created a model using the auto-train method, just for the sake of simplicity. Let's open that up here. Okay, you can see that I have a logistic regression model here. My target that I want to predict is whether or not this potential customer is going to be included in the group of strong customers that I currently have. And here's my deployment. Now let's look at my deployment. So I have my model, and now I have my specific deployment. So what's the deployment? It is a REST API that I can access and embed in my applications, and this is the URL for that. Okay? And we can actually test that out here. Now, we know that, what were those factors that Rory told us were important? He said United States, small company, technology and computing, home and garden, those types of fields. So let's do something that's totally the opposite of that. Country in the United Kingdom, a small company, that's fine, we'll keep that. But then what about style and fashion and jewelry? That was not something that we found to be valuable at all. So when we're testing the API, we can actually see that the probability of this being a good customer is extremely, extremely small. Okay, so that's really cool. Now what we want to do, though, is our app developer, he's going to take this model from the data scientists and then put it into an app. So I have a very bare bones app here that's running on my local machine. And I just want to show how when I submit this form to the API, it returns back to me the prediction. So here I have my terminal open, and when I click submit, you'll see that it's posting the data to the service and getting the response back. So let's do technology and computing. We'll do consumer electronics, and let's say our company is Japan. Japan, yeah, Japan. Okay. There. So this is the raw response that you get back. We see here that our prediction is the probability. The prediction is that this will not be a strong customer. However, it's a much higher probability, closer to being a strong customer than the style and fashion example was. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the demo. I just wanted to make sure that we covered the Watson machine learning component. 10 minutes. Okay. So we're going to have to cut a bit of the slides short here, but let's just go back for a minute. Let's cover, like, how we did here with the success factors. So were we able to create a scalable solution that uses customizable AI to enrich the understanding of our existing and potential customers? Yes, we were. We used Watson NLU. And how did we combine this with internal data and build a model? We did that using the IBM Data Science Experience. How did we deploy that model? We did that with Watson Machine Learning, which is built into DSX. And then how did we make this data available to other people in our organization? We did that with Compose, which was the Postgres database that we were writing to. And then we also, we used Watson Analytics and DSX for the project management piece and the data management piece. Okay, so to review, I think it's clear now that the concept of the Watson Data Platform is all the services that this advanced analytics team needs to do their jobs well are available in... What's that?
We lost you for a second. We lost you for a second. I wonder if you can go back and repeat.
Did you hear this slide?
Only the beginning.
Oh, okay. All right. So how did we get the AI to classify the customers? We used the Watson Natural Language Understanding. And how did we scale that out? We used R and DSX to build a notebook that would go get that data for us. How did we combine it with internal data and build a predictive model? We did that in DSX. Then how did we actually deploy that model to be able to be used by the business? That was using Watson Machine Learning and DSX. And then lastly, how did we provide the additional value and make that available to the rest of the organization? We did that using Compose, which was where we wrote out the data to Postgres, and then Rory was able to pick that up in Watson Analytics, and by being part of the project in DSX, that facilitated that connection. Okay. Okay, so as I said before, I think it's clear now that what we have with the Watson Data Platform is the various services that these different roles require to do their jobs well and to collaborate with each other and improve the efficiency of the team. So how much time? I think we only have like 5 minutes or so. There are some slides going through a little bit more detail of the services that we went through today, but if people have questions, that might be more important to cover. What do you think, Anna?
So there are no questions right now, but if anyone have a question that want to be asked now? Yeah, I have no questions, Rafi.
Okay.
So if you want to just go ahead and cover what you wanted to cover.
Yep, that sounds good. Well, we should be able to finish then. All right. So as you saw, I just want to go over the core value of the data science experience. I think to me, it's the project and data management pieces, the Spark service that you have incorporated into it, and then perhaps the most valuable is the ability to deploy the models and have them hosted. That I think is a major differentiator. IBM was recently recognized as being the leader for data science platforms in 2017. It's a little hard to see here, but that red circle is IBM over here. Okay. We went over this. This is how to operationalize your models, and that's really a core design principle of the Watson Machine Learning Service. I think you saw how you can do that, even though the app that I had on my local machine was very bare bones. And then lastly, I didn't talk very much about Compose, but I think Compose is a great service. If you have needs for a database or a data store, and you want to be able to scale it out and have it managed for you and optimized for you, Compose is a great service for that. So these are also available on Bluemix to be provisioned. Okay, and then Rory, you have a couple slides for Watson Analytics, and then I think we'll be done.
Sure, go ahead. Next slide. So really briefly, Watson Analytics is all about providing smarter data discovery in the cloud. It has all the benefits of advanced analytics without all the complexity. As you saw in the demo presentation I had done, I was able to quickly use a predictive capability to understand what's driving revenue. That's covered in the understand outcomes. I was able to easily create a dashboard, which would be covered under the Share Insights capability. But I could have also created an infographic, an expert storybook. The key point being it allowed me to reuse and leverage existing discoveries and visualizations that I had leveraged in the guided exploration component, which allowed me to either select suggested starting points from Watson Analytics or manually type in a question and get a number of suggested ways to view the answer back. I could also manually build out a visualization, which is also what I had done with the predict capability. I selected the visualization, then selected a metric for my target, and it went and built it. And lastly, the ability to do a fairly high-level data prep and refinement, understanding what's the data quality score, create calculations, groupings, hierarchies, select which fields should and should not be included in my analysis, and overall just define how these fields are used: sort, count, sum, filter, all of that. Next slide, please. One question I often get asked is, who is Watson Analytics for? I always say, in short, it's for everyone. Everyone can find a benefit for using Watson Analytics. Data scientists such as Rafi could leverage it to not only get a quick hit look into a data set they've been given, but they can also leverage Watson Analytics to get a quick starting point analysis in the data and or help allow business analysts share and promote different analytical activities, offloading that onto them and allowing Rafi to do the more low-level, difficult data science type activities. The more traditional usage, though, would be for business professionals that are looking to better understand their data and be able to act and visualize on it quickly, as well as business analysts who, again, are looking to reduce time to informed action. You think of your typical spreadsheet time, you've got tens of thousands of rows, columns that could go all the way out into double Z's. If you're given that, it's going to take you quite a lot of time to pivot it and do lookup tables and understand what's going on in the data, identify patterns, versus using it in Watson Analytics, which does a lot of that for you. Next slide, please. Briefly covered this in the demo, but IBM Watson Analytics utilizes Bluemix Data Connect. It's a self-service data preparation and cleansing for business users. We provide a growing list of over 20 data connectors: Redshift, Apache Hive, SQL Server, Oracle, Sybase, Postgres, just a number of different ways to source the data up, including the ability to pull from Cognos reports, Cognos servers, as well as your traditional upload of a spreadsheet. And we're continuing to add connectors as time goes on. Next slide, please. And that's it. So thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you everybody for
we have some
joining us.
questions.
Okay, good.
Okay, so the first question is, where do you see upgrades or further improvements for the products?
For which products?
General question, didn't specify.
Oh,
Well, so I guess, Rafi, I can take that one first if you don't mind.
go for it.
So I was in Phoenix last week for a week-long enablement session internal, and I got to meet with some of the offering management guys who are actually building up Watson Analytics, and they shared some of the roadmap. Now, I can't tell you timelines or whatnot, but they're definitely looking at increasing the amount of data that can be uploaded into Watson Analytics, continuing to improve and update visualizations. For instance, Cognos Analytics, our enterprise reporting capability, has partnered with Mapbox to provide very, very detailed and interactive mapping capabilities. That's not in Watson Analytics yet, but they are looking to bring that in. So I would say that they have been fairly aggressive with releasing and updating new capabilities in Watson Analytics. It seems like some of the upcoming things they're looking at primarily focus on getting more data into Watson Analytics, making it easier to have data be updated. For instance, if you upload a spreadsheet, just recently it was released, you now have the ability to append more data onto the data tile that you previously loaded. So if you get a quarterly spreadsheet sent to you, you upload it one quarter into Watson Analytics, the next quarter you can now append the new spreadsheet onto that. They're looking at possibly bringing in the capability of scheduling database pulls of data into Watson Analytics. So just again, continuing to add in the abilities to bring in more data and leverage it easily.
Okay, nice.
Okay.
I have just a brief thing to say about DSX. So the Watson Machine Learning Service and the catalog, the data management features, those are in beta. Those will be coming out soon. And then there is SPSS modeler integration that they're bringing in as well. Similar to what Rory was saying, there's aggressive roadmaps for Data Science Experience, and as a user, I find that it improves basically every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, I open up DSX, and there's something new that they put in there. So it's constantly being improved and worked on.
Okay, next question. Can Watson Data Platform interface with other platforms like Azure?
That's a good question. It depends upon what you mean by interface, I guess. I know that there are, for data connections, if you wanted to bring in data from, like Rory was saying, use Data Connect to bring in data from non-IBM data repositories. I think that there's some connections to Azure there, but as far as I would imagine, I don't know 100%, but I would say that the integration between the two is probably somewhat limited because they're competing platforms.
Yeah, and the question is specifically about data connection.
Okay, so I would have to look it up, but it would not surprise me if you were able to bring in data from Azure into DSX. And Rory, what do you think about Watson Analytics?
Yeah, so not so sure about Azure per se, but as you can already see, we are interfacing with other cloud sources like Amazon Redshift. So it would not surprise me if they went that route. Obviously, the ability to pull data from cloud is important. They also provide the ability to pull data from on-prem databases using our secure gateway so that that data is encrypted in motion and at rest.
Yes.
So from a strict Azure perspective, I don't quite know. My assumption would be yes, given the fact we already have a data connection integration with Amazon.
Okay, and regarding Watson Analytics, can you do more complicated joins or models such as Bayesian?
Sure. So yeah. So from a join perspective, the short answer is yes. When you're talking about bringing in data from a database perspective, you can actually say, I want to pull in from this schema. I want to pull in these 4 tables, and then you can specify joining table A to table B and the columns you join on, whether it's a left, inner, outer, full, right. So you can do that kind of a specification from a join perspective. When we start talking models and Bayesian, which I'm assuming is a predictive algorithm model, they had intended the Watson Analytics predictive capability to be a bit of a black box because, again, they wanted to get that advanced analytics into the hands of more quote-unquote regular everyday users and make it as simple as possible. Now, I will say that I had seen at one point they had another one which was a decision tree model that's still out there, and at first it was just a straight up normal decision tree, but later on they added the ability to change different model options for the decision tree. I don't recall seeing Bayesian, but I would say overall, if you're looking to create a model and specify which algorithm or predictive model it's to leverage, I don't know if Watson Analytics is the one you'd want to leverage at that point. I would recommend looking at SPSS, our more traditional GUI-based predictive capability, and or looking at Data Science Experience, both of which are starting to merge closer and closer together as time goes on.
Yeah, and I know the question was regarding Watson Analytics, but because it's about Bayesian, like naive Bayes or something like that, that algorithm, in DSX there is, in the Watson Machine Learning Service, there is that particular one that you can use as one of your options for the classifier. So that might be something that you would want to look into.
Okay, and the next question, I don't know if we are able to cover or we need to cover it afterwards, and it's about pricing. What happens after the 30-day free trial for desktop and cloud?
For Data Science Experience?
Yeah, because there's not a desktop for Watson Analytics, but I will speak to the Watson Analytics portion briefly after you, Rafi.
Okay, so the DSX 30-day trial, it should keep going. It should keep going beyond 30 days. You might have to provide some kind of storage after that initial 30-day period, but you'll be able to use the notebooks and things like that. If you have storage somewhere else, or if you wanted to pay like a very, very small amount using object storage, you'd be able to keep it indefinitely. But as far as I know, that it will extend beyond 30 days. You don't have to make any special requests or anything like that. But if for some reason that happens to you, please, you can reach out to me and I will take care of it.
And from a Watson Analytics perspective, you can go out today and get a free account. It's just very limited on what you can query. I think you can only use an Excel spreadsheet as your data source, and on that I think it limits the number of rows you can leverage. To go past that, if you're looking for just individual accounts, you can go online and buy your own license. They range in different types from personal to professional. When you start talking about wanting to get more than one license for your team or your teammates, my recommendation is to definitely reach out to either your technical seller that's assigned to your account or your IBM rep, or if you would like, you can email me and I will help to track that information down.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions and we've officially run out of time. So thank you so much everyone for joining us, and thank you Rafi and Rory for this great presentation.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Anna, for the opportunity, and please, if anyone wants to follow up with any questions, reach out to myself or Rory.
Yes, thank you very much, and have a happy Star Wars Day.
You can also just reply to your GoToWebinar emails, and those emails will come directly to me, and I will make sure that Rafi and Rory get them. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.